The cloud. Okay. I'm going to mute everybody for now, and then we'll in a minute, definitely want to open it up to discussion and questions as well. Okay, great. So welcome to everyone. My name is Chad Carson. I'm one of the board members of an organization called the Friends of the Green Crescent Trail. And what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is just an update of some of the current projects, both officially with the Green Crescent Trail, but also just in general about initiatives to improve walking and biking and other just pedestrian related activities in the greater Clemson community. So that is my objective tonight. Just from a housekeeping kind of thing, I would love to have participation, and hopefully we're gonna have a couple of the other board members on the call with us. Let me see if there are any. If there are, go ahead and unmute yourself and say hello so I can see you here. There's Beth Venable and Drake. Hey, hello. But what I'd like to do, if you have questions and comments, I'm going to go a lot of information out there. I'm just going to put it out there, but just think about this like a town hall, like a group discussion, like we were sitting in a circle and I'm just showing some slides and showing you what's on my mind and what I know. But I would love for comments and questions and feedback. That's the good part about this kind of format, is that you can do that. And the easiest way to do it, there's a chat box on the right or on below, depending on your browser. So just type your question in there. And if I get to I'll get a stopping points, and maybe if somebody like Beth or somebody else who's watching can help me out with that and see there are some questions and unmute yourself and let me know, then I can jump to those questions as well. So just the agenda for tonight, I'm going to give you kind of the very beginning an overview in case you're totally new to the Green Crescent Trail idea, an overview of what it is, what it's all about. And then I'm going to spend the bulk of tonight going over 5 different projects, and all of them are a little bit different, but 2 projects in Clemson and 3 projects in the town of Central, and then just update you and give you some information about those that I know. And I know there's gonna be some other people on the call maybe who know more than I do, some people from Central. I see Tom's here, and maybe Kurt will be on as well, who can help me out with some of the details on the Central projects as well. So thank y'all for being here. I wanna start by just talking about what is the Green Crescent Trail. Get that question sometimes, like, what is this thing? What's this all about? And the second question is usually, is it like the Swamp Rabbit Trail? Because a lot of people in the upstate of South Carolina are familiar with the Swamp Rabbit Trail. It's been very popular. Also the Doodle Trail in Easley and Pickens. And the answer is going to be yes and no. Yes, it's kind of like the Swamp Rabbit Trail in that it's about walking and biking. The big difference, though, between where we've been trying to work for the last few years and where the Swamp Rabbit Trail and the Doodle Trails are, is that we don't have an abandoned rail bed like both of those towns did, that the county, in the case of Greenville County, and I believe it was the city of Pickens and city of Easley, were able to acquire that and just build a trail, and you had 7 or 8 miles or 10 or 12 miles all at one time. That has its benefits, and that's not what we have in our case. So the objective is to do something similar to that, to have a recreational use trail. But as I want to show you, it's also a little bit different, and hopefully maybe different and better as well over the big picture. That the Green Crescent Trail, the way our group sees it, our organization sees it, is really at its best as a network of connections. So rather than we are hopefully going to have some trails that are very similar to what you see with the Swamp Rabbit Trail, and you can get on it recreationally, and you can ride your bike, you can walk your dog, but it's also about the things we're connecting themselves. So the towns in between, the downtown areas, the neighborhoods, the parks that we're connecting, that's really what it's about. And so more our strategy has been, where are the connections, what are the most important connections we want to connect in our community? And then also, what can we do that's feasible? And sometimes it's going to be in 1 mile, half-mile chunks. Sometimes it's going to be as simple as improving a sidewalk. And so we're trying to advocate for a lot of things like that related to this network of connections. And sometimes when I say connections, that's going to be just a sidewalk. Just, hey, there's a gap in the sidewalk, or this sidewalk needs repairing, or maybe it's a protected bike lane. Instead of having, just no space on the road for bikes, maybe having a protected bike lane for people to go from one place to another. Sometimes it's a multi-use path. And so when I use that term, that's what the Swamp Rabbit Trail and the Doodle Trail are all about, multi-use paths, where you have typically a 10 to 12 foot wide path, asphalt or cement, that you can almost like a highway for bikers and walkers, where you can go in 2 different directions. But then also it's going to be about natural surface trails. And one of the trails in Central we're going to show you is that. So just more like a traditional hiking trail and getting out in nature and having those kinds of connections as well. And then even beyond what you typically think of as connections, we also are trying to advocate for parks and green spaces and public plazas, spaces. So think about when you go to downtown Greenville, for example, and you think about the impact of the connection of the Falls Park as being right in the center of town, a natural location, the paths, the sidewalks, the public space, and the kind of connectivity that has for a town. You know, those kinds of things, like in downtown Clemson, downtown Central, some of the spaces in the parks around there are really important as well. So I just don't want to forget, all of these things are important to this whole network of connectivity. So there you can see some of the communities in the big picture. We're kind of starting big picture. We're going to go down into the nitty-gritty detail of some of these projects. But our hope is to sell the vision of, hey, we have these communities like the city of Clemson, Clemson University is a university, you got Seneca, Oconee County, you got the experimental forest of Clemson, you got 6 Mile, Central, Southern Wesleyan, Pendleton. All these communities are different municipalities, but in the big picture, when people come to visit the town or when you live here, you cross the borders all the time, and you think about yourself living in the greater Clemson community. And as we change and as we evolve, that's really what we're growing into. And we think the Green Crescent Trail concept of having walking and biking connectivity could be one of the physical connections that brings a lot of these communities together. And then of course, there's gonna be small connections within each community too, but that is kind of just to give you a visual of what the big picture looks like. And here's some of those different entities that, you know, all would have to work together and be a lot of collaboration to make this work in the big picture. All right, finally, before we get into the projects, I want to talk about the benefits of this, why this is important from an investment standpoint, of volunteer time, of donations, of cities and local municipalities spending their money on this. There's multiple benefits. One of which you've probably seen if you're familiar with Travelers Rest in Greenville is the economic development benefit. I'm always just amazed when you go over the bridge into downtown Greenville and you look to the left and the right. And if you remember 10, 15 years ago, what that looked like and what that looks like now, and this is all private investment from a public investment in parks and biking, walking infrastructure. So you just look along the spine of the Swamp Rabbit Trail and you see apartments, you see new parks, you see you know, dynamic local businesses, shops, restaurants. And so economic development in terms of recruiting people who want to live along these places is a big deal. And it's a new way of thinking about economic development where you try to recruit talent. You try to recruit, where do people want to live? Where do millennials want to live? Where do baby boomers when they retire want to live? They want to live in places where there's amenities like this, where the town has prioritized connectivity. There's also a public health benefit, getting people out walking. And I don't think it's, you know, in the days of coronavirus, this is kind of self-evident, it seems like, that everybody's getting outside just for, you know, personally, I can speak for myself, for sanity sometimes, just to get out and walk. And so having that close to your house, having parks and green spaces in our community is not only a public health for exercise, there's also public health for mental health as well. Having a sense of place and quality of life is a big value of this. And this is why I was talking about not only sidewalks and connections, but public plazas, spaces, places like you think about in downtown Greenville and Travelers Rest and Easley, that quality of life and having a place that people can get out of their car, can walk, can gather, can call their own as a community. So placemaking is a big part of this. And then reduce auto traffic. In the case of Clemson, we're a small town, Central, Pendleton, and there's growth pressures. And so growing in a way that allows people to have a choice of what kind of transportation they're going to have. We're a geographically pretty small community, and yet, you know, it's really hard to get around by anything but a car. So a big part of this, in addition to recreation, is can somebody who lives a mile from the campus at Southern Wesleyan or Clemson University, who's a student who would very naturally do that, can they do that safely? And currently, it's not very safe. If you haven't tried to ride your bike around town and commute, it's not an easy thing to do. There's a few pioneers. I'm one of those who do it, and but it's not something that most people feel comfortable doing. And then finally, not least, but is environmental sustainability, is that if we look at the land we have and the green spaces we have, they're going to evaporate. They're going to go away if we don't have some kind of planning of having green spaces and preserving them in a way that we can all use them and enjoy them, and they don't get forgotten and kind of pushed aside. So all of these go hand in hand. The reasons I've been so excited about this as a volunteer for the last 4 or 5 years is that you find few projects that have this intersection of so many community benefits like some of these connections have. All right, let's get it. There are any questions about any of that or comments before I get into some of the details? If you are just joining us, welcome. It's great to have you here this evening. I don't see any comments. All right, must have covered everything. Okay, so phase number 1 of Clemson is what I want to talk about first. So we're going to start with some of the Clemson stuff, and then we have 3 projects in Central that I'd like to go over as well. So just to give you the highlights of what we're calling phase 1 in Clemson, hopefully somebody can come up with a better name than that because that's not very exciting, but this is the first phase. It is exciting that we're finally having the first phase of the Green Crescent Trail in Clemson. And one of the key components of this was that in 2019, so last year, and last year's budget, the City Council in Clemson allocated $650,000 to go towards building this phase 1 trail. And so going back to this whole idea of connections, if we had a 7-mile, 8-mile segment like Easley and Pickens did, it'd be pretty obvious where you build that. But through public input, through consultants, through looking at all the different parts of town, we had to focus on, all right, where's the best place, most natural place to build this, and the most feasible place to build a first segment. And we went back and looked at connections, which I'm going to talk about, like what's this connect to? And the phase 1 that we've settled on is it could end up being about a 1.5-mile connection. There'd be different types of surfaces on this connection. Hopefully a lot of it would be asphalt, multi-use kind of path, kind of like if you're familiar with the Swamp Rabbit Trail or Doodle Trail, a lot of it would be that. There also might be some widened concrete sidewalks on certain parts of it that are right next to the road with a curb and kind of separation from the road on frontage road. So I'll show you that. And then also kind of a unique, but we hope would be something we can repeat in other parts of town, something called an advisory lane, where when you take a neighborhood, this is a very low traffic neighborhood, using the existing streets and using paint and signage to slow people down and make it safer for the bikes and walkers who are going on in that area. So I'll show you a picture of that as well. And maybe, depending on budget and depending on how this all implements, maybe some parts of that being a natural surface trail too. So that's where we are in all this. Is the money was allocated in 2019. Just this summer, an engineering firm, was contracted with the city of Clemson. They're called Pond Associates. They're out of Atlanta and came well recommended. And there's a hiring committee that researched them. And we had, I think, 5 other firms that also applied to do the construction documents, the surveying, and the engineering to actually get this to bid and get some people to start building it. So they think it might be like a 11 or 12 months process. It's just started. So that's kind of the timeline of what that's looking like. But I want to show you I'm going to see some questions coming in, but I'll show you some of the key connections that this first segment would connect, and then also show you a map of this so you can see what it's all about. So the pedestrian bridge in Clemson, I'm going to show you a picture of that. Clemson Park, which could be a trailhead for this. Gateway Park, and some churches and neighborhoods in between. And then right next to this connection in the future would be Clemson University and the Art Center and Clemson African Museum. So these connections are one of the main reasons this segment was one that seemed natural because of where it is, the proximity to different places, and also the smaller number of private properties that it had to go over. There is some private property, particularly the Methodist Church and maybe the East Clemson Baptist Church would have to agree depending on which routes we went here. But there's fewer, a lot of the path is on existing parkland and then on some of the roads here in town. So here's some pictures of the pedestrian bridge. If you're not familiar with this is over Highway 123 along Berkeley Drive, right near the elementary school. And it's been a big success in terms of more people using and connecting to the elementary school. We had my wife was the coordinator of the walk and bike to school day at Clemson Elementary last year, back when things were normal. And we had over half of the student population at Clemson Elementary participated in school day, which was a really exciting thing to see so many kids and parents participating and doing that together. And that was all made possible by this kind of investment that connected. There's a really narrow bridge there before, and now having this makes it much easier to get from one side of Berkeley Drive to the other. So that's one part of this connection. The other part is Clemson, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but this is a future, what it could look like having the trail come Clemson Park with potential improvements in the future. And then there's 3 churches that this goes near right along. It's Clemson Methodist Church, Clemson Presbyterian Church on one side next to Gateway Park, and the East Clemson Baptist Church as well. And then through neighborhoods. And I mentioned there's one path where it's actually a pretty significant part of the length of this first segment would be through Brook Street and the Rippleview Street on the way to Gateway Park. And so the idea here is that can you connect two parks through both asphalt paths, but also these kind of paths where there's already a really low volume of traffic and people are already walking and biking a lot in that neighborhood, but make it more of a organized and this is where people go, stay on this side of the road and try to have some markings that orient people and make it easier and safer to go from one place to another. And then Gateway Park is the final part of that connection on one side. So let me, and then in the future, I mentioned the Clemson African American Museum and the Arts Center. We really love to connect up there across 193 to them. And then of course to Clemson University as well, which is right on the other side of Gateway Park. So I'm going to look at the questions and the comments here just right after this, but I wanted to show, this is a map. So actually not up to date because some of these paths are probably going to divert a little bit differently, but it just gives you the perspective. Over here is Clemson University. And so this is Perimeter Road where my mouse is moving right there. The Army Reserve Center there. These are now the commuter parking lots, the Presbyterian Church, Gateway Park. So this would be one side of this first connection in Gateway Park. The red line is that on-street path that I was talking about with Rippleview and Brook Street. And then this actually purple line was a preliminary line, one of the early studies, but it would either have to go up to Frontage Road or Frontage Road and come around, or, excuse me, this is where working with East Clemson Baptist Church, if their congregation would have to approve this, there'd have to be an easement, but one possibility is also obtaining an easement from them to go along the edge of their back of their property, coming from the Clemson Methodist property, which connects to Clemson Park. So where you see this purple line, it could either go there on the back of the East Clemson Baptist property or up to Frontage Road. All right, let me see the chat. I'm trying to do a couple things at once here and see some of the questions or comments that were made. All right, so Crossy said, how about Trailhead as phase 1 title? So that was a suggestion instead of the very formulaic phase 1 Green Crescent Trail. How about the Trailhead of the Green Crescent Trail? I like that idea. Very good. And we need to crowdsource that, get a lot more suggestions for the phase 1. Jerry Carter asked, will $650,000 cover the cost of the first stage? So that is a good question. And that's part of what we hope this engineering firm is going to be able to help us out with. It's going to be really tight, just from what the preliminary conversations with them. But before we hired them, I remember having a conversation as our committee, and I tried to ask it as many different ways as I could ask it. Like, before you take this job, do you think we have to know that there's a chance that we could do some form of trail, some form of connection that would be reasonable, that we can make this happen for $650,000? Is that possible? And they thought it was. So I still think it's going to be, as most of these projects, any people in the public leadership know, these can tend to get, as you start putting things on the ground, things are unknowns happen. So it's potential we might have to do some more fundraising and or phasing potentially, but hopefully we'll know that pretty soon, whether that's going to be, how close we're going to be on the cost of that, but it's definitely going to be tight. Eunice asks, what streets are you showing now? I'm not sure when she asked that question, but if you pictures I showed, you can, maybe I can go back to that one and let you know. Miss R. Taylor, let's see who that.
Chad, it was the one above the gateway. We have Gateway Park there. It was the one with the bike rider. That's the one when she said it. Yeah. Okay.
Let's go back to that one. This one right here. Is that the question, Eunice? If it was, this is Rippleview, Rippleview Street. Let's go back. All right, I'm figuring out where my buttons are. Excuse me here. All right, gotta stop sharing, I think, for that to work. I'll share that screen again. Somebody said, R. Taylor said, love the idea of the neighborhood trails. Tybee Island, Georgia had a similar bike path. Most of the path is in back roads without much traffic. They just have a signage and a road markings. Much cheaper in new roads and trails, and the Chamber, Hotel City all promoted it. And so we do really see that advisory shoulder. It's a newer concept. It's not something you've seen in town before. And it's going to take some getting used to. And definitely part of our initial, this is it's not set in stone until this engineering firm comes and we have more public input and we just know for sure. But the initial conversations with some of the neighborhood was that they are already walking and biking and would welcome that kind of, some kind of improvements there. But if it works there in that neighborhood, it's also something we could replicate in other areas. And being money conscious is going to be a big part of how can we expand the connectivity without spending all the money, on every single mile of segment. So that's one possibility that'll help us. Kathy Robeson, hey Kathy, says, what's the next step for this Clemson project? The next step with Pond and Associates is they came into town actually last week just to do a walk of the property and to prepare for the survey of the property. So that from a practical standpoint, there have been no easements obtained from Clemson Methodist Church, which will have, they've given a preliminary approval. Their board of trustees last year approved the concept, but there needs to be a survey of the property. And so that the Methodist Church and then potentially the East Clemson Baptist Church, and then there's another apartment owner along Clemson frontage, Clemson Road. All three of those would have to see the survey, make sure they're okay with it. And they would have to give what's called a recreational trails easement in order for the city to be able to have a trail on the edge of their property. So that's a practical next step, is the survey. And then while that survey is going on, Pond and Associates will also be doing some ecological studies and some impact studies on there's a little watershed creek between the Methodist Church property and the East Clemson Baptist property. And so how do you get across that creek, and can you get across it? What the cost would be? Can you have a pedestrian bridge? Are there other forms of crossings that could happen, or is that cost prohibitive and do we need to go around? I'm just a novice at this stuff. I'm not an engineer. I don't even pretend to be one. And so that's from the volunteer standpoint, it's been really exciting to have them finally look at some of those questions and hopefully pin down some of the on where this could go, what it will cost, and then also getting the survey and talking to in the area for the congregations to say, yes, this is something we want to do, and then have easements prepared and signed. And then hopefully after all that's done, then construction documents can be made and they can be put out to bid for the actual construction of the trail. If there's anybody on here who knows some of these processes better than I do, I know we have some of the city council and public leaders. So if I missed a step there, please correct me on that. But that's my understanding of the next steps, Kathy. Eunice said, when we were working on the bridge over Berkeley 10 years ago, people were quite willing to donate to build a bridge. We collected funds during walk to school days. Are you encouraging donations to support trails? So thank you for asking about donations. So yes, absolutely. We're a nonprofit. We are all volunteers. We'd like to actually eventually hire a trail coordinator, somebody who could support the local communities and doing some of this work instead of people like me and Drake and Bob and Lisa and Heidi and people on our board just volunteering their time. There's always a limit to what we can do. But any donations at this point would be very helpful to just go into the trail, because there's going to be overages there. And even if we're on budget, having some extras and being able to do some things that are even better along that path, every single dollar is going to be very helpful. And at the end of the presentation, I have our website, but if you want to check it out anyway, it's greencrescenttrail.org. And we have a donation button there, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we certainly appreciate that. But I think a public kind of community, when we have a focus on this project and we can go to the public and say, here's what we have, here's the cost. If we do have some extra cost needs, I definitely hope we'll be able to go to the community and I'll be the first one in line to help donate to more of that as well. All right, Christopher Ermitter. Hi, Christopher. Says slide 15, you're giving feedback. And Jerry says, what group is empowered to approve the preliminary plans from the engineering firm? So the city of Clemson is in charge of all the final approvals. We are advisory. They're allowing us, our group, our board of trustees to be involved, but the city engineer is pretty much, and Andy Blondo with the city are kind of in charge of that process. So it's going through, and this is something that city council has been really helpful with. I know John Duckworth was very involved, and Robert was as well, and other members, just to make sure that not only for this time, but other times there's a process that we go through to, when funds are approved, what has to happen next, what kind of what firms hired, just so that if we do more and more of these segments in the future, that there's a process that we can all go through and a public input process. And so that's part of what we're doing as well. In addition to building the trail, is trying to build the process of how this can be done repeatedly in the future. All right, I'm going to go back to the sharing the screen. Great questions. Thank you for those. All right. I just actually made a YouTube video this last week. It's gonna be hard to write that down. I'll share slides afterwards, but if you go in the next day or two, I'm gonna share this on our YouTube channel. If you look at Green Crescent Trail YouTube, just search for that. There is a tour of this entire Route 1 as it is right now. So I just went with my phone and kind of walked this route and explained things as I was going. So it's actually there right now if you wanna take a screenshot of that or something and type it in. But just it's more time than I could take tonight to go step by step through each one of those and explain it. But if you're really curious about some of the details of that, I walked through it with my phone. It's about a 6 or 7 minute video, and I would encourage you to watch that to learn more about phase 1 as well. All right, so that is phase 1. Just wanted to give you an overview of that, let you know where we were. The second project, and this is another one in Clemson, is related to this one, is the project in Clemson Park. So here you can see an outline of Clemson Park. It's a 4.5 acre park. If I understand it right, it was the original headquarters for the Parks and Rec department in Clemson. So there's still the old pavilion there, has an office that was the office for the head of Parks and Rec for years. And they did camps there, and there was tennis courts there. In the last few years, there hasn't been much going at Clemson Park. And so there's been a push from the community to do something there and to invest in it. And in 2019, separate from the recreation, the funds for the Green Crescent Trail, City Council allocated $200,000 to start improving Clemson Park. A big part of the reason we chose phase 1 where it was also to leverage these funds, the fact that the city was going to be investing some money in Clemson Park, and we could bring some of the Green Crescent funds and any other funds we raised to that. It kind of doubles up instead of putting them in, separating them out. And so the $200,000 was for Clemson Park. Our organization and the city of Clemson also applied and were awarded a $100,000 South Carolina Recreational Trails grant. It was just awarded earlier this year. And so that is specifically for building a loop trail. So within Clemson Park. So I want to show you, I'll show you a picture and a map of what that looks like, but those are the funding sources for this kind of piece of the larger Green Crescent Trail, but this one in Clemson Park. And the next plans for this particular segment of the trail, some of that money, and again, some of the city council people are here on the call, correct me if I'm missing any details here, but my understanding is some of that money, at least initially, there's some safety issues with trees, some that might be, oops, I'm sure what happened there. There's some safety issues with trees in the park, which was kind of a first use of the money. And there needs to be some cut down, some trimmed that were dangerous that could fall on people if they're using them. So I think the city horticulturist, Tony Tidwell, has marked some trees and gotten some bids to start doing some of that first. The second part, and these are all like just foundational pieces, so anything else that goes into Clemson Park, whatever it is, trail and other amenities that hopefully will be there too, there's a water runoff issue. So if you've ever been there, it's just on this, water runs down that hill from Clemson Park entrance road. And a lot of that is washing out. And if you go there during a heavy rain, I mean, it's just like a little river running through parts of the park. And so the landscape architecture study that was done of the park made a suggestion that one of the first things that need to happen is some grading to improve. You're not going to completely fix those problems, but definitely you can alleviate some of that so that whatever improvements we do, like sidewalks, paths, other amenities, aren't just washed out. So that's the second thing that has to happen. And then this third part is the loop trail that I'm going to show you here. And here is a map of, this is all from Paul Russell, has done a lot of this work, by the way, who's hired by the city and also has donated a lot of his time. I don't know if he's on the call tonight, but a lot of the drawings I'm going to show you of Clemson Park were from Paul, and he's worked on it for many years and kind of developing some plans and visions for what could happen there. But in particular with our Green Crescent Trail project, you can see here this outer loop is all within the limits of Clemson Park. You've got the existing pavilion here, you got the parking lot here, and this segment right here, he's calling like the fast lane. So this is actually going to be part of the larger Green Crescent Trail, and I'll show you another map where it's going to keep on going here into the woods. But if you want to, let's talk about it from an experiential perspective. If you want to go to Clemson Park and you live nearby, either walking there or just driving your car here, you get out and you want to take a small walk and just a loop and just do a couple loops here. That's the kind of trail this will be. This, you know, kind of a smaller scale, enjoy a walk, enjoy the nice trees and a lot of things that are there, and not necessarily like having to go on a longer bike ride or something on the Green Crescent Trail. This would be, you know, an enjoyable loop that then you could have other amenities, and it's going to kind of an open book on what those other things will be in the trail in the park. There's been different discussions about different things, picnic areas, improving the pavilion here. So we talk about having a pump track, which is a smaller kind of, how do you explain that? A loop basically for younger bikers or teenage bikers to go in and around and ride their bike and learn how to ride their bike there in the park. Also talked about having a field, maybe a basketball court. There's been talk about a dog park. So there's other things that have been discussed there. But just for these purposes, the loop trail could support all of those and having multiple things to do in Clemson Park. And so the $100,000 grant we got, plus there'll be some of the city money, will go towards building this loop trail. Here you can see a little bigger perspective of both the loop trail with the part of phase 1, and whether it would go all the way to frontage road or maybe have a bridge crossing here. This is what the rest of kind of the connection to phase 1. It would also go up the hill on the Clemson Park entrance road too, to connect back to frontage road. There's another perspective for you there just to see what it could look like in the future when you come into Clemson Park with people using it and different types of users, and then what that could look like and feel like. And here just showing a improved parking lot, and depending on what side of the road the phase 1 comes in, it could come on this side, could come on this side. There'll be a crossing here at some point to get to that fast lane, that 12-foot wide path that goes around Clemson Park. And there you see just other spaces for other amenities as this concept of improving Clemson Park keeps growing. All right, so that's Clemson Park. Any comments, questions on that one? All right, we can go back to it if you think of some a little bit later. See how my time's doing, 7:34. All right, good. So I want to talk about some of the central routes, and I'm really glad that I saw Kurt's here, saw Tom Clower's here as well. So please, y'all feel free to jump in as well, because the great thing about Central, and Clemson too, but I mean, Central has been, from the beginning of the whole Green Crescent Trail movement, has been really active, and Southern Wesleyan University has as well, and it's taking steps and moving forward on projects and just getting things done. And that's what I want to talk about, is some of those. There's 3 different projects that the town of Central, that are either in some stages of development in the town of Central. And the first one is what's called Highway 93 from downtown Central to Southern Wesleyan University. So I'm going to show you a map here in a second, but the trail segment would start in downtown, right near the caboose and the Bollock Field and kind of the restaurants in downtown district, and it would end right at the beginning of the Southern Wesleyan property, and then Southern Wesleyan would carry it from there through their athletic district. And it'd be approximately a mile, if I understand it right. From downtown to Central. And one of the enticing things about this segment, it was one of the first recommendations when we did the original feasibility study, was to do this segment, because Southern Wesleyan and downtown and Central already have a really close partnership. They work really well together, and physically they're not very far away, 1 mile away. And yet the connection for, if your students or your residents want to get there, is not quite as easy to get there on foot, on bike. And so this could be a physical connection that could help economic development downtown. It could help the university to attract and recruit, and just a really good partnership. And so that's this idea. And here, right here where I'm circling, is the caboose area, Bollock Field, and the route as it's planned right now would go kind of divert from Highway 93 a little bit, and then go along the side of Highway 93. So there's an existing sidewalk for part of the way there, but the plan would call for a widened sidewalk all the way to the edge of Southern Wesleyan's property right here. See a comment coming in there. Somebody else doesn't mind reading that out for me, that'd be great. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So I just want to show you some of these connections. So here's, if you've been in Central, you're familiar with the caboose, kind of the iconic thing right there on the corner near the stoplight in Central. The scoreboard in Bollock Field that Shaq Lawson donated money to, which is kind of really cool, hometown NFL hero. I'm not seeing the screen. Is anybody, are you all getting a black screen as well?
Yep.
That is weird.
It said hacked on the screen.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. I've never seen that before. All right, I'm just gonna keep rolling with it like that didn't happen, but here we go. All right. So there's some images of Southern Wesleyan side. There's really nice athletic facilities. There's a golf driving range that my understanding right is open to the public when that's going, the track, and then some softball fields. And this is the Dr. Boss and Philip with the city of town of Central looking over kind of where that trail would go onto Southern Wesleyan's property. All right. What was I trying to do here? Does look like I'm getting hacked over here. That's weird. All right. This just shows the Southern Wesleyan side of that route and kind of where the edge of it. So the route would go somewhere here in the softball fields and go from there. Are there any other comments, Tom or Kurt, about that? I don't want to be giving all the information on the Southern. I'm really excited about this one, but the money. Let me talk about the financial part of this. I had a slide that showed that, but let me see if I can find that.
Yes, while you're looking for that, Chad, can you hear me okay? I had a new system put in.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. Yeah, it'd be great.
While Philip wanted to be on here, but he's out of town. So I do have Kurt on here. He just texted me. He is on the call. So I'm gonna let him talk on most of this, especially some of this trailhead here. But we have received most of the funding that we need for that phase one where it was announced. We got a letter. We're having to look a little bit at some of our matching funds just because of COVID right now. That's kind of thrown a little kink into everything, as everybody knows. Mm-hmm. So, but we are still, this is top of our burner, and we're going to keep pushing forward with it. We're excited. It's a great opportunity. Philip and I worked very hard on getting these grants and all put in. So everything's been pretty much approved. Just some minor stuff left. And like I said, what we had planned, part of the matching fund right now, we're having to relook at a little bit. But
okay. And Tom, just and correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but I know that this project kind of a total cost. It's always difficult to nail down the exact cost, but I think it was like a 1.2 or $1.4 million project.
No, we were able to get it to come in lower than that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we had to make a few adjustments, taking out some of the fancier things that we were going to put in with it, mm-hmm. some shelters and stuff, but we want to come back at a later time. The main thing is getting the trail itself built and all the signage, everything that people could safely use it. And
mm-hmm.
that's the main part. And then the additional things such as some bathrooms.
We do not forgive. We do not forget.
Wow.
I think we've been hacked here too.
I do too, yeah. All right, so I'm going to keep muting things as I can, but all right. I'm gonna mute everybody. Then Tom, I'll have to unmute you here in a second. So, all right. So yeah, I'm gonna let Tom has to unmute himself there. But one thing I just want to celebrate with the Central Trail was the town of Central applied for a transportation alternatives grant, which is distributed through what's called GPATS, the Regional Transportation Association, and there was $640,000, I believe, was awarded. Over $600,000 this last year was awarded. So a big chunk of that section from downtown Central to SWU was awarded in that grant, and then they've been applying for other grants as well and then local funds to fill the gap. So I mean that's a big deal, and it was a competitive grant process with other parts of the upstate, and so that was getting that grant was a big deal, and kind of was a big step forward on one segment. I don't know if we got Tom back on there yet.
Yeah, I'm here, Chad.
So and I don't know. I was going to just say the other grant was there's Appalachian Council of Governments grant, if I remember right, is the other one that
we were
the
doing
towns
an ARC grant, and that again that has looks like it's approved. So
wow,
we're close to getting ready to rock and roll.
Well, man, that's good news. That's the first I've heard of that. So
we're excited on it. We're like I said, we've just got a few little things we're having to nail down with it. And Philip actually got the notice. I don't have all that information. I was on an extended leave, having fun battling coronavirus. So, but we are getting close to hopefully being able to do something.
Great. Well, and I'm speaking for our group, and I know the rest of the community who's interested in this. We'd love to organize around that, and if we need to do some more fundraising, then definitely be excited to help do that. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Tom. I think I'll kind of with the weird noises going on in the background here. I'm just going to keep plowing forward while we can. And if we do happen to get cut off or something weird happens, I'm going to share this, and I'm also going to have some other videos. And if you connect with us on our Facebook page, that's a great way to stay connected. We have an email newsletter list. So all of those would be awesome ways to stay in touch with what we're doing. And I'll provide on our email list, we'll provide updates. Our Facebook page, we provide updates on anything that's going on. So like we'll share the news about anything going on at Central and some of those updates on the grants. But we'd love to stay in touch with you all that way through our Facebook page or our email list. And you can go to greencrescenttrail.org is the way to do that. All right, so let's talk about the fourth out of the 5 projects, which is the SWU biking and hike trails. And I know Kurt is here to talk about that, hopefully. I'll just give a summary while he's getting on. It's a 6+ miles of natural surface dirt trails for hiking, for biking, and it's a stacked loop style is the way it's described. I'll have to let him explain that too, but I've ridden on it a couple times, and it's really good for all skill levels. That's what's really neat. I'm excited about this concept because right here in Central, if you take my kids are 7 and 9, and we can go out there with them on their bike, and they're learning how to ride well. And for them, it can work really well, but it's also fun for me and other people. I'm not kind of a medium level biker, but so it's right. I'll show you on the map where it is, but it's located at the end of Clayton Street in Central.
And Chad, I have a map here too as well.
Okay, there's Kurt. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, thanks.
And I'll let you make some comments. I'll have this map here just showing, I did one beforehand, but you want to share your screen and do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I can make this map available publicly too.
Okay.
We're just kind of refining it.
Is it letting you share your screen? If not, sometimes
it's host disabled. So.
All right. You'll have to pass it back to me after this, but I'm gonna make you the host real quick. There you go. You're the host.
Okay, so we've got so what we've got is we'll start here is there are downtown there. Chad pointed out this green line would indicate the portion that we're securing the funding for Green Crescent. And then this blue line indicates the part that Wesleyan's going to pick up to complete it, to get it onto their campus. And then of course they have the track and the tennis facilities there, and the driving range all open to the public. And then on the very back of campus, we built this trail system here, which the stack loop would kind of say, if you wanted to tie this first blue loop, you can see my cursor rolling around, it's about 3/4 of a mile. And you can run that loop, and then you can expand, further and pick up larger bits of it as you progress. It's down there at the end of Clayton Street is the parking area. And we've got some other ideas, hopefully, to be able to expand into some of this other land, the former landfill, to continue to grow the park. We'll see how that goes. So it's
Kurt,
there. It's ready for everybody to use. It's open to the public, and it's being published for your personal information on the networks. Cool. So.
Yeah. I was just going to comment that I had a couple of people asking how to get there, and it's if you go down Highway 93 like you're going to Central, and he's showing it on the map there, you take a right on Wesleyan Street, and you could also go to the entrance of Southern Wesleyan on Clayton Street if you want to do that. But either way, you get to Clayton Street and go all the way to end of Clayton Street, and there's a parking lot at the end right next to Potter's home. And every time I've been there in the last month or two, right, Kurt, it's been packed. There's been people there, a lot of people. I mean, there's definitely space, but it's just it's popular really fast. So there's obviously a need, and there's people in the community who want to use it. So I think it's been really exciting.
Yeah, it stays busy. You can go check it out on Google as well under SWU bike trails, and you'll find it there. Great reviews. It's got 30 or 40 5-star reviews just here in the last 2 months. So
We are Legion.
All right. Hey, if you'll pass the host back to me real quick, Kurt, I'm going to go to the other project, let you talk about it some more, but I'm going to try to take back control of
Hey, Chad, are you taking public comment on the SWU trails?
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead, Tyler.
Hey, yeah, this is Tyler Garrett. So I can tell you we're doing some sort of organized family trails or family time on Wednesday nights. And as you mentioned, sort of the parking lots increasingly growing in popularity, which is fantastic. But I can't speak enough about it. I mean, obviously the machine trails being very smooth versus maybe riding the Issaquah in other places where it's a little more technical. Riding with our 7 and 11-year-olds has been awesome. And like I said, our group is now probably up to a dozen riders, of parents and kids. So fantastic. Loving it. And
We are Legion.
hoping we can see more growth out there. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
glad you're enjoying it. We were able to secure a little more funding too early this week from Pickens County to continue to improve it. So it's going well. Thanks for the positive comments.
Yeah, and one of the regional ideas that I know we have people thinking regionally on this call and both on very local level, but it could easily Pickens, Clemson, Central, 6 Mile, Seneca area be known? What could it be known for? What can could we hang our hat on? And our natural spaces that's always been my personal comment is that it's hard to compete with the amazing kind of natural beauty and spaces we have. And so trails like this at SWU, preserving 100-acre, setting it aside and having it be for biking and walking, and then us doing the same in other parts of the community. I mean, that starts to build, and you start having people coming here and being known for that, for walking, biking trails. And I think it's a really, in what Kurt's done there with the budget he had and implementing that, and the amount of people using it is a good example of what can be done in other places too. Kurt, there was a couple questions about, are there separate walking and biking trails? So I guess just speak to the biking users or the walking users. Like if you're going to go out there and walk versus biking, like what's the experience like?
Yeah, so it's directional. You bike one direction, walk the other. So you'll have eye contact and good communication. But it's a shared path. So it's a mixed use path.
Show there's a map. If you go to the parking lot, you can see they'll have directions, rules for the trails, directional. So even number days you hike clockwise and you bike counterclockwise. Odd number days you hike counterclockwise and bike the other way. So got it organized pretty well. All right, so I want to leave space for questions at the end too. Well, Christopher asked, or Mitter asked, has SWU donated the land, or is it simply allowed its use? And I guess that's a Kurt question as well.
Yeah, so it's some of that land is Southern Wesleyan's, and some of it is a former landfill owned by the city of Clemson and controlled by Pickens County. So the 3 agencies controlling the land got together, and we created the trail system, and it now falls under an easement for the next 10 years that is under Town of Central Parks and Rec. So it's actually a central park. It's insured under our REX program now. So
multiple owners, an easement, and Central Parks and Rec, Town of Central is the kind of controlling entity for that one.
Yeah. And if I could interject something right there.
Sure, go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just, Kurt has worked really hard on this. We're really proud of what he's done. It's amazing that the input and the comments we've got on it. But for all those that own here, this is just one example of many that we've been able to do when we come together and put aside any difference of a boundary line or whatever. This started way back. This is my 28th year here at Central. And it started back when Steve Figueroa was at Clemson, and he and I got together and we said, it's time we work together. And we started that, and within 2 years, we built this indoor rec center. And this is just another example. And this is how we get things done. And the trail system, Chad, I mean, I have to give y'all a lot of credit. Y'all have really worked hard on this. And we're just trying to put it all together. And but that's how we make things come and work, is by all of us coming together, discussing how we can work together as a team, using so many different folks. I'm looking at all the folks that are on this call, and each and every person has something they can bring and put together and bring to the table with reaches to make this thing happen. This is a great opportunity. It is an absolute great opportunity. But as we know, funds are short and it's an expensive project. So unless we all come together, we're going to always be piecemealing little by little. So I think we're on the right track. We got to get it started. And I think once people see that this thing is rocking and rolling, people usually tend to get on board. They love to climb aboard the train once it's up and going. They don't like to jump on when they think it might break down. So I think y'all are doing a great job with this, and I'm going to get off.
Yeah, well said. Can I record that and just replay that, Tom? That get me excited. That's a little coaching, like locker room speech. I think I recognize where that's coming from. I'm just going to put it back on both Kurt and Tom and Phil, Philip and SWU. I mean, and then I could say the same thing about Clemson and what they're doing too. But just being able, the community groups can only do so much until the city council people and the people who decide to invest, and the state representatives, till everybody else gets on board. That's when things really start moving. So it is a team effort. And the great thing about this movement, I've found from the beginning, has been community driven. It's been in the comprehensive plans for years. When we first started getting onto this, it'd been in the comprehensive plan. People talk about it, but getting it done and implementing it has been just people like Kurt and Tom and all of us who are out there just getting it done. So this really is an exciting time. It's challenging with the funds, but we can come out of this and say, this is the time when we really put together the network that we become known for in Central and Clemson and Pendleton and other areas outside of here. All right. So one more, before we end here, I want to share my screen again, Kurt and Tom, if y'all could make comments on this too. As it says, the rec center to Spring Forest Drive. So another, I measured it, it was like 1.5 miles, maybe y'all can correct me on that, but somewhere in the 1 to 1.5 mile potential loop, natural surface likely. There's also some sidewalks on Highway 93 and a low traffic street, and maybe having a trailhead at the Central-Clemson Rec Center that Tom was talking about. I want to just talk about some of the connections this route, and I'll show you a map here in a second. This could connect the Central-Clemson Rec Center, the Pickens County Library, the Central City Hall, apartments and subdivisions in that area. The Paul Partners Spay and Neuter Clinic was just coming there, and they're fundraising to do that in the old municipal court facility there. Restaurants and the Dollar Generals along this route. Downtown Central is less than 1/3 of a mile away. So just a ton of important connections right here in this little loop. And this is what I had, and this might've been updated. I know Kurt and Tom have been working on this, or Kurt a little bit more recently than I have, but my understanding is potential is to start, you could park here at the rec center, for example, hop on a trail. And if you didn't know it, there's a really cool disc golf course right there at public land that Central has right here behind the rec center down Cross Creek Road. It's already popular and people use, but there's a sewer easement that goes along where my mouse is right now. And what Kurt and the city's been working on is getting an easement to get back to Spring Forest Road. My screen went out there. To get back to Spring Forest Road and to make that connection from the rec center. And then you would have on street, so it would not be a separate path. You could come back up Spring Forest Drive to the sidewalks on Highway 93 and make a loop back to the rec center that way. So if people wanted to jog, walk their dog, do an exercise loop, that's one, for at least my understanding of what that loop could look like. So I'll let Kurt and Tom maybe talk about, correct me if I got any details wrong, and maybe talk about a little bit update on that one as well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna let Kurt do most of the talking, but I do want to say something right there. Yeah, one of the things that we're doing, Kurt and I have been in a lot of discussion, and we're focusing on that area where the indoor rec center is. We've got a lot of ideas. We've also got one project I'm not going to discuss right now, but that could open up for a lot of opportunity for us with parking. The disc golf course, as you know, has become very popular. It's now, if you saw the thing that just came out, we are now ranked in the top 50 in the world. That's not the United States. The disc golf course is now top 50 in the world, and that's ranked by players from all over the country and around the world. So anyhow, one of the things that we're enjoying about this time together is the fact that we have so many folks from all over the country coming to this disc golf course. And as, that don't look good. Okay.
That doesn't look good.
As you well know, most of those folks that are involved in disc golf are usually involved in biking, and they enjoy getting out, exercising, and participating. So anyhow, that is something that is really unique, that we're going to be able to tie all this trail system in there as well. But I'm gonna let Kurt talk a little bit on it.
Yeah, well, Chad and I talked, man, I don't know, maybe it was 2 years ago now, about that yellow line that he'd shown that kind of connects the rec center to the Spring Forest neighborhood. The town of Central owns the majority of that land along that yellow line, with the exception of that on the neighborhood end. So
about right there down.
Okay,
yes.
right where I'm circling there, they don't, the town does not own.
So we talked about it as being an easy connectivity to get that neighborhood hooked up to some of the amenities, the rec center and the disc golf. And the town's agreed to buy those last 4 parcels along the creek there. So we're negotiating that now. We've settled on a price. We've gone through the surveying process. We're to the point now where we're just working up the documents. And then we'll have procured all the land between Spring Forest and the golf course and the rec center to tie that whole neighborhood together. And then we'll start working on the next piece, which would be building an actual connectivity path that people can use.
Kurt, could you talk to some of the ideas of maybe, and we talked about all sorts of different paths tonight, but sometimes it's getting a trail on the ground, like getting the easement's difficult. But then sometimes just getting something on the ground that people can walk on, even if it's a natural surface or a quarry dust or that kind of thing. I know you studied some other towns that have done similar projects like that.
Yeah, what we're talking about now, it'd be pretty cost effective and low maintenance to do a quarry dust or stone dust path. We could make it wide, it'd be low maintenance. We'd still be able to access the sewer through it. You could still ride a bicycle or push a stroller down it, but not necessarily a hard surface like asphalt or concrete. And so just to get it used, see how it's used before you make that huge investment to asphalt or concrete. And we just would have a lot of control over it, where we own all that land. There'll be no easements. So I think we're exploring that pretty heavily. That'll probably be the first substrate we see go on any of our paths. That'll be the first one that we can get done.
We are currently getting quite a few people using from the Spring Forest subdivision. They're using that as a walking trail coming out early in the morning. They're walking the disc golf course. So it's already, and that's what we're seeing. Everybody enjoys doing it. They just ask us to make sure we keep it cut short for them, and they're using it.
Well, I think all these projects are exciting, and part of my objective tonight was just sometimes you have a small group of people hustling, both in the cities, volunteers, and the information. You're just busy with your nose to the grindstone, and we need to get this information out to people. And so, one like my request would be just to share what's going on and to get involved and in whatever way you can. And everybody's got different projects going on, but if any of these and all of these projects or something you think are a good thing, you think they're exciting, you think they should be prioritized, you can let your city leaders know that. That always helps. They like to hear from you to know, hey, we do like you doing that. You're a citizen of the area. We want you to do more of that. And then also just getting involved and we're going to try to have, social distancing is an issue now, but also just volunteering, and maybe as some of these projects get on the line, can we, in addition to raising money, but also just people getting out there and using them, and maybe there's a work day, and there's things we can do to help the cities and the municipalities by having volunteers who are organized and love the trails and use the trails to help pick up trash, to help keep things maintained. That's by us showing as a community, we want to use these, and we're willing to help and galvanize ourselves to help get these things going. I think it makes it even more likely to be voted on and implemented and invested in. So I guess that's a takeaway. Just all of you can think about is we have a nonprofit group. If you want to volunteer with us and get involved, we could certainly use the help. We haven't done a really good job of recruiting and getting people involved, so we love that. You can reach out to us by going to our website, greencrescenttrail.org, and just going to the contact button there and getting in touch. That's one way. And then I'd like to have more of these kinds of Zoom meetings going forward and figure out how to not let hackers get in at that point. But we'll, this is a nice way that people from different areas can get together and talk. And let's just keep this conversation going, and maybe every month just have an update on what's going on, and focus on one part of the town, one part of the community, feature the parks, feature the good work that's going on in the community, because there's a lot of good stuff happening in all of our communities, and we want to, by celebrating it, we can keep more of it going. All right. Any other questions, comments? We're right. I promised an hour, so I don't want to take too much of our time. Any other ideas, questions, comments before we head out tonight?
Chad, one thing that we're really interested in as far as Pickens County is concerned is tourism. And I think it would help the tourism side if the Southern Wesleyan part were extended to come out at Church Street, so people could come off of 123 onto Church Street, and there'd be a little trailhead there to get onto that part.
Kurt, do you want to speak to that? I know you've been looking at all those routes more than I have.
Ansley, I'd like to talk more with you offline about that, even more specifically, getting deeper into that landfill and expanding on those Wesleyan parks. Not only get us up to Church Street, but up to 123 to create a really usable event space. It'd be really, really cost effective. So I was at County Council last night, and really loved seeing what you guys are doing. And I'm happy to talk more about that offline with you.
I wanted to thank Ansley for his support too. When we first did this trail feasibility study, when it was in its infancy, it was Ansley basically helped lead getting us some funds just to get this thing visioned, organized. So thank you, Ansley, for what you did with that.
You're welcome. And I'll be happy to talk with any of y'all and do what I can as far as the county side to help you with it.
Great, thank you.
Chad.
Yes, sir. Who's there?
This is Rob.
Hey, Rob, go ahead.
Could this eventually get to Issaquena Trail and provide maybe sidewalks along Issaquena? I don't live there anymore. I've moved off Issaquena Trail, but that's a dangerous area to try to walk.
Yeah, and I didn't mention that as one of our projects tonight. I want to do a separate call. I'll do a whole nother call where we can.
We are Legion. We do not forgive.
All right, let's see who that is. Black hand. Trying to throw them off, but they're off here already. So anyway, there's a sidewalk plan in the city of Clemson. I'm sure Central has their own version as well, where there's some amount of money every year that's allocated to sidewalks, and there's a process for deciding which segments are built each year. And there's typically not enough money. I mean, to do sidewalks along Issaquena, we're talking in like the hundreds of thousands, up to $1 million to do millions of dollars to do the whole length of it. But that's a huge, important project that we've been trying to sound the bell on as well. And beyond just these trail projects, sidewalks are a really big deal. And so we'd love to get more involved in just petitioning that, hey, we need to allocate more funds to sidewalks too. And also have the community have some input on where that should be too, to just make sure that process is heard. So I'm hearing you, Rob. I think that's important. And one of the I can speak to one part of Issaquena that we hope might be like a future segment of the Clemson Green Crescent Trail. And I'll just show you all that on the map real quick, as long as it works for me. If I can, that didn't work. Let's see. Okay, there's Google Maps. That's what I wanted to get to. So we are Old Stone Church Road. Let's see. Issaquena Trail. Okay. So part of the, here's Nettles Park and Issaquena Trail. All right, there we go. So from the Issaquena Trail, from Pendleton Road to where you turn on Nettles Road, that's a difficult part. It's really, it'd be very dangerous to walk on there. I live on Delwood Subdivision, so I'm really familiar with it, trying to walk there a lot. But one of our future hopes is, as I zoom out here, you can see Gateway Park there, Clemson Park's here. So this first segment's going to kind of be in this area, and we hope it'll connect over into, the Kelly Road neighborhood and Clemson University. And Clemson University has some trails that they've been working on, which I need to get some more updates on. So there'll be this kind of this sinuous, like this connection here from Clemson University to our phase 1. And then we hope that we can connect down Berkeley Drive towards Issaquena Trail with kind of the next phases, and at least making a better protected lane on the side of Berkeley Drive, and then get to Issaquena Trail. And one of the future potential segments is, instead of going along Issaquena, maybe go parallel along 18 Mile Creek back here. And so maybe if you're over in Nettles Park, or if you're over at Patrick Square, or you could have a trail system that goes parallel to Issaquena through the park along 18 Mile Creek, and then goes along. These are all private properties, so we have to get easements here, but then connect back to Issaquena Trail through one of these properties, and then along just a very small segment along Issaquena Trail to get back to Berkeley. That's an idea for a phase 2 of the Clemson Green Crescent Trail that we're considering and would love feedback on. But that would be not a solution to having sidewalks on Issaquena, Rob, but maybe just bypassing at least a segment there and having you be able to walk or ride your bike in the woods instead of being along Issaquena Trail.
I was thinking of the other end of Issaquena near 93. All those
Yeah.
apartment complexes.
Yeah, and let's zoom up there. Lots of apartments, what he's talking about, were used to live up here, right? Is where Issaquena meets 93. You got cat bus lines, you got people standing in gullies trying to get on the cat bus, all the way to lots and lots of density in apartments near the grocery stores. So this is one of those reasons I want to have a public meeting about sidewalk trails, a sidewalk allocation. Like, this is one of those areas of the city where somebody's, tons of people riding buses are not able to, or having to stand in ditches, and would use the sidewalks more heavily than other parts of the city if we had a sidewalk right here. Is that the area you're talking about, Rob?
Yeah, that's like from Berkeley Drive to 93, because there's 4 apartment complexes and a fire station along there. I used to live at the end of Issaquena Trail at 93.
Right.
And I would walk away on the cat bus. Your brother was getting hit by somebody on that beside the road. And it's the same thing when you get to the other apartment complexes, Issaquena Village and Ridgecrest and the others.
Right.
Well,
thanks. Yeah, it is scary. It's dangerous. And if our goal is to make connectivity and people be able to use alternative transportation around the city, that's like a epicenter right there. That's a high use area where people are already using it. They're just using it and it's dangerous. They're using it because they have to use the bus to get to school, to get to work. And so it's a really important location in our radar for sure. Any other comments or questions, suggestions? Love to hear from you. If you have any, just unmute yourself and say it. And if not, we'll call it a night.
Dan?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Charlie.
Charlie White.
Hey, Charlie.
I know this is down the road and it was not mentioned tonight, and it doesn't need to be mentioned, but I noticed in the first map you put up there, you had a connection up to the Issaquena Forest into the Twin Lakes section of the forest. Did I read that incorrectly, or
no? That's
those spurs coming off.
Yeah, let me go back and see if I can share my screen if it works. It is one of the future connections to have.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Charlie. Go ahead.
I had heard that there was some talk about making a terminal in at Seed Orchard Road, which is out in the Twin Lakes section of the forest. And it looked like there was some route going out that way.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even talk about that tonight, but this is perhaps one of the most exciting parts. It's related. Clemson University is owning this project, but Clemson University had 2 separate grants that it was awarded. One was a TAP grant, I think, Transportation Alternatives, for about $1 million. And then another one was 1.25 million, I think. There we go. So I'm going to pull it back up again. And it starts, what's interesting, it starts up here around Perimeter Road on campus. And last I heard, they had wanted to get all the way to Seed Orchard Road. And
right.
That's not working out. The last I heard, it was going to be really difficult with the ecological impact and some of the other costs to get all the way to Seed Orchard Road. It was going to have to be shorter than anticipated before, but there's going to be some kind of trail from Clemson's campus towards the South Forest. The question is going to be how far it makes it. And I'd like to learn a little bit more and find out, because that was 5 or 6 months ago when I heard some of those updates.
Well, there's a lot of space there at the entrance to the insectary and the DNR building back there. It's right after you cross the railroad, so that may be
right,
because it is swampland once you go around that curve going to.
I think that's exactly where it got expensive, and I think my understanding was it could end right around where you're talking about, where the railroad track crosses, and you have the sectary. That maybe that from there to campus would be segment 1, and then in the future have other segments to get even further.
All right, thank you, Chad.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks for bringing that up. And so I've got 2 topics for future calls. We're going to talk about sidewalks in Clemson, and we're going to talk about the Clemson University project, and kind of maybe I could get on some of the Clemson University planning department. That would be great to get some of their perspective and let the community get some feedback on that as well, if y'all are interested in that.
I just wanted to say the membership for a family is $50 for the Green Crescent Trail. There were 30 of us on here, so if we each joined, that'd be $1,500 a year. And if we each told a friend, that'd be $1,500. That's $3,000. I think that's the way to let our elected leaders know we support this. So everybody go on and tell your friends to join. I think I'm so grateful the governments have put money in, but I think we got to put money in too. Yeah. So please join. Chad's doing great work. Let's support him and the whole board and join.
Thank you, Eunice. You're doing a better job of that than I am. I need to learn that better. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. Y'all to come with us for an hour on the evening and talk about trails and Clemson and Central and our communities. Great. So I hope we can do it again and keep this going. So I really appreciate all of your support and your time and helping us out and helping us move some of these projects forward. This is going to be an exciting year to go along with some of the other stuff that's going on out there. So thanks so much for your time. I'm going to I'm going to upload this to YouTube. So if you want to see a replay or share this with other people, just stay in touch and we'll share it around. Y'all have a great evening. Thanks everybody.